our Mexico City director let me know that her salary had increased 200% in under 1 year of being a Women Who Code leader. When our one of our fellows just received an award in Singapore for being kind of a rising star in the industry. When our Toronto director went from being an individual contributor to kind of slacking the group and saying, hey, you know what, now I'm promoted to lead at my company. And then in under a year, she got a director level role. So climbing 2 rungs in the ladder in just 1 year.
Alaina Percival is the CEO and co-founder of Women Who Code, an international non-profit dedicated to inspiring women to excel in technology careers. Since 2013, the organization has grown to over 250,000 members and holds events across the world. I'm excited to talk with Alaina and learn more about her organization and the challenges and successes she's had leading the charge. But before that, a quick shout out to our sponsors for this episode. eStruct Software is a technology team that can partner with you to dream, build, and scale out your tech stack. From helping to discuss architecture through to adding in developers or building out your team, reach out at eastrocksoftware.com. Welcome, Alaina.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
I thought I'd kick off with a question. I have a 12-year-old daughter who loves to be creative, programming in Scratch. She loves it. I mean, that's just an amazing platform.
Wonderful to hear.
And when she heard I was going to interview you, she was pumped, to say the least. I mean, really, really excited. Been pestering me for weeks about it. So I said, what's her question for you? And her question was, what's your personal story and what inspired you to start Women Who Code?
That's a good question. So my personal story is actually I didn't take a technology path initially. I was one of those kids who, even though I constantly would test higher in math, people would say, "Oh, go after language," and nudge me in that direction. And I would say that is a common story that I hear from women in the tech industry, women who ended up not choosing a technical path. And sometimes it's far more blatant of hearing women aren't good at math. That's not a path for you. And so what I heard was far more subtle, because my strength actually was in math. So when I graduated from university with a degree in international relations, I ended up moving to Germany with a congressional scholarship. And I stayed for 3 more years working for the shoe company, the performance wear company Puma. And one of the things that happened while I was there is, I came in very junior, as people do when they're starting off their career. And at the end of the day, I would walk over to another team that I was really interested in the work they were doing. When I finished my work, I'd say, hey, what are you working on? Can I help you with it? And so I ended up getting promoted very quickly within Puma. And I took a role in my first promotion that was reporting to the most senior woman inside the organization. And that was very exciting to me, because even though I was still in a junior role, I had like these lines of connections to, occasionally work with the CEO, occasionally work with the CFO, as I said, directly working with the head of retail, who was the most senior woman at the time in the company. And, that gave me some connections and some insight. And so then I was again continuing my journey, asking around, hey, can I help you? And so I landed in a role where I was leading our niche products. And what I found in that is, again, I'm still junior in my career, and I had to learn to manage up, because I had all of these deliverables from other people who were more senior than me in their career. And I'll be honest, like, I wasn't always doing it the best way possible. It was a learning experience. But what I bring forward is um, Women Who Code is a volunteer driven organization. And it is like managing up. You can't tell a volunteer, you have to do this. This is your deadline. You have to do it now. You have to make sure they understand what they're doing, they believe in it, that they're bought in, and that they are helping to drive the timelines and goals. And so I really carried that experience forward. Um, After that, I went to work for a really small women's performance footwear company, and I saw, that there was huge disparity in the market between men and women. So I'm really at a professional level getting involved in women's empowerment. And a couple years later, I had the opportunity to move to the Bay Area, and it was just one of those places, San Francisco. If you get a chance to go there, do it. And I hit a wall when I arrived. I wasn't coming from a technical background, and people were saying, you're not from Google, you're not from Facebook, we don't understand your experience, even though I'd had a really strong career up until that point. So I started learning to code, and I started spending time with smart women who were excited about the tech industry and realized, not only do I love doing this, but actually it's important, because as Women Who Code was just getting started as a community group, the world started talking about teach girls to code, teach women to code. But there were a lot of amazing, talented women who were professionals and in the industry, and they were facing biases in their careers that were making it harder for them to stay. It was making it harder for them to level up. And I realized that actually, if we, and in this case, I and the people around me, didn't elevate the need of women in the tech industry, this beautiful conversation of teach girls to code, teach women to code was a threat. Where if we elevate all three, we can be creating an impact together. And so that's when I realized the need to found the nonprofit Women Who Code, and really making sure it was accessible to women around the world.
Yeah, that's a really interesting and powerful story. I think, a lot of people just resume match, and maybe someone doesn't have the experience. And how do you start getting
Mhm.
that experience? And it sounds like through that networking, that sort of helped you both yourself and then also discover that there's a problem that needs to be solved.
Mhm. Yeah.
So what's the mission of Women Who Code?
Women Who Code's mission is to empower diverse women to excel in technology careers. So we see women coming into the industry, and around that 10-year mark, about 50% are leaving the industry. So what we know is that every time we can create a sense of belonging and help women stay in their technology career, their lifetime earnings is ultimately going up by $1.7 million. And so, we really aim to retain that 50% of women, see them reach their potential within the industry, which in turn makes them role models. It puts them in positions of power to design for inclusion with policies and procedures inside of organizations. And so, in a way, it's the easiest way to create equality in the tech industry is by supporting the talent in the industry today.
Maybe it'd be helpful to sort of talk a little bit about the unique barriers that women face, both from looking at the tech industry and thinking about whether that could be a career for them, but
Mhm.
also when they're in that, what are the problems? Maybe go into a little bit more of the problems in more detail. I think obviously, the tech community is a lot of male dominated space,
Mhm.
and in that, I'm sure there's a lot of well-meaning people that want to understand exactly what the issues are so that they can then think about ways they can help out and understand that. So maybe if you could talk a little bit to that.
Yeah, the one thing that stands out the most to me is the smallest things, like the biases that you face every single day, that if you complained about any one of them, you'd be the weird person who complains. So an example kind of similar to that journey and which path to take is women will often demonstrate leadership skills, but they'll be identified as skills that should pull you out of your chosen career path. So a woman on your technology team will be great at talking about the product and helping people move along. And instead of saying, hey, have you thought about making this person lead, or this person should be promoted, she will hear, maybe you should become a project manager, or maybe you should go into marketing because of this skill that you have. And what that does is actually it's a fantastic career path, but it's diverting her from her chosen career path that has far more upside potential and opportunities for her if she remains in it. And her male counterparts won't hear that. They will hear, he looks like a leader. He's demonstrating leadership. We should be considering him for a lead in this opportunity.
Are there any like tips and tricks there for women to be able to avoid those pitfalls?
Yeah, that absolutely. Elevate what your goals are. So your manager, the people around you won't be able to they will have biases ahead of seeing your career trajectory. But regardless, people aren't always thinking about what other people need or knowing what other people want. And so tell people. I listened to a talk by Kathy Waller, who's former CFO of Coca-Cola Company. And she said this, great job had come up, and she thought, oh, I'm perfect for this job. But she knew the 6 people who were being considered for it and was like, why, how do I get considered for it? So she went to her manager, the hiring manager, and said, hey, next time this role becomes available, how do I get considered? And the person said, wow, I didn't know you wanted it. I had never considered you for it. And she ended up getting the job. And that was the game-changing role that ended up in her becoming CFO of one of the world's largest companies. And so elevating your voice around what your goals are enables other people to see it and to help you navigate there. And it's not something that comes naturally to everyone. So you have to activate it and practice it.
Yeah, so don't just be great at the job that you're doing now, but be forward looking, and not just be forward looking, let everybody know. I think there's a lot
Yeah.
of people that want to help
Mm-hmm.
others, but often they don't necessarily know what that is unless you tell them.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean it's going to happen tomorrow. In this circumstance, she said it and she got the job. But for some people who do need to build the skill set, it gives someone an opportunity to say, hey, yeah, work on this and this, and then in 6 months let's put you up for this promotion. And the truth is, women tend to wait too long to ask for promotions, to put themselves forward for new jobs. They wait until they have all of the skills. And so elevating your goals a little bit sooner is only going to help the people around you recognize that you're ready to move forward.
So that sounds like a really amazing tip, and I could probably spend the next 2 hours extracting other great tips off you. But I mean, really, what you need is a network to support. So maybe that leads a little into the services that you provide that help provide those kind of networks.
Yeah, so shameless plug. I invite everyone listening here to join Women Who Code, womenwhocode.com. And women, having a community around you, one, it helps you to develop your technical skills. It helps you to kind of think about and build the career skills. So if you're an individual contributor, you come to a Women Who Code event, and in a very safe space, you give a talk or lead a project, or become a volunteer and actually lead a team or a community. You're building actual career skills that then in turn your company can see, and you can speak to, how that's helping you to get a promotion. So technical skills, leadership skills, but then also community, because when you do come up against those biases, those things that are are small and are hard to not internalize. Because if someone says, "Oh, I don't know how to explain architecture to a woman," it's the same, like it's architecture, just go. And actually, one of my board members who's very technical, had that directly said. But it's very easy to hear that and say, "Oh, this person is making a sexist comment." But if someone says, "I just don't see you as a leader," it's very difficult to not internalize that as a failing that you have, versus a social construct or a bias that this person is carrying with them, and putting in front of your success. And there's far more subtle things than that. So having the community around you to say, yes, you do belong. You're on a tough project right now, but you do belong. Or this really isn't working for you, but hey, my company's hiring. Come interview. I'm going to recommend you. And so having that network, that sense of belonging, access and visibility to the role models, the thousands of incredible women in the tech industry who are game changing and leading and building things that are really shaping our industry, is just incredibly helpful.
And where are those events? So there's physical events, or the virtual events. Where would they
Yeah.
be? You know.
So in the beginning of 2020, so 2019, we were putting on an average of about 2,000 in-person events per year.
Wow.
So since 2020, we're entirely digital at this point. So right now we are putting on an average of 5 free technical events every single day throughout the year. And that is in a variety of programming languages. So we do have 6 technical tracks around data science, Python, mobile, front-end development, blockchain, and I know I'm missing one of them. And then also career navigation. So we go deep in those particular areas, but whatever your interest is, we're putting on close to 2,000 events. You'll be able to access it. And what that means is we're also able to record that content and put it onto our on-demand YouTube channel, so Women Who Code's YouTube channel. And then if you aren't able to attend on a Tuesday evening, or you're not able to participate, you can go back and revisit our content anytime you have access to a computer and time and interest to do so.
Yeah, that sounds like an absolute wealth of resources for people to tap in. And what's the most exciting things that you're rolling out, things that you are really passionate about at the moment in the organization?
Yeah, the things that and this isn't something that we're necessarily rolling out, but the thing that excites me the most is the impact that I see Women Who Code having on the careers of our members and our volunteers. And of course, I get to know our volunteers a little bit more because I work with them so frequently. But when our Mexico City director let me know that her salary had increased 200% in under 1 year of being a Women Who Code leader, when our one of our fellows just received an award in Singapore for being kind of a rising star in the industry, when our Toronto director went from being an individual contributor to kind of slacking the group and saying, "Hey, you know what? Now I'm promoted to lead at my company." And then in under a year, she got a director level role. So climbing 2 rungs in the ladder in just 1 year. I had one of our board members describe being a leader with Women Who Code as like going to a top business school, so going to Stanford Business School, or she mentioned, University of Peking um, as a reference as well. Just it gets you the connections, it opens doors, it helps you to practice key skills that are going to help you succeed. And it's taking high potential people and really just accelerating their career path about 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, it seems like an absolute career rocket to really get involved in. And outside of Women Who Code, how can other companies and individuals support your mission, even if
Yeah.
they're not necessarily members?
Yeah. So Women Who Code has a job board. So if you are hiring technologists, share your best jobs, your best technical jobs at womenwhocode.com. And also, it's really important to actually invest in the community, because we're doing the hard work to make sure that the industry stays strong, it stays diverse, and we are deeply dedicated to access. So it takes sponsorship and donations from our partners to be able to put on those 2,000 free events, to be able to run our leadership programming. All of these things take support. And then at an individual level, bring the mission back into the workplace with you. Advocate, support the diverse women within your organization. Elevate when they've contributed, when they've helped succeed on a project, because it's going to be harder for them to advocate for themselves. And also, yeah, I think I'm
Share this
fine.
podcast.
Yeah, I think
Share this podcast. That would be
yeah.
a great way to promote what you're doing.
Yeah.
So, tell me a little bit about yourself as a leader. You touched on that earlier, that managing up is one of the great skills needed to assist a volunteer organization. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about your leadership, how that's changed over time, things that you've worked well, didn't work so well. How would you reflect on that?
Yeah. I would say that, especially with Women Who Could, it feels like every year and a half to 2 years, the organization is just reinventing itself, because we're only 10 years old and we've just grown. We're international. We're gone through a pandemic, which every organization has. So it's really exciting, but it also means that I definitely have to find ways to grow and change. I would say naturally I'm a servant leader. I view supporting my team as my role, lifting them up, finding ways to unblock, activate, and support their successes is key. And then I think there's still areas where I have a lot of growth to do. I'm
Don't we all?
constantly practicing getting better at giving feedback, and wanting to now needing to learn to lead an even bigger organization, because uh, we're growing, and our global footprint is growing. So it's a journey.
Yeah, it's what a journey as well, and the success that you've had so far. So looking forward into the future, if you could beam 5 years into the future, what do you think that's going to look like for the organization?
We're having those conversations right now, because we're in our strategic planning. Um, but I would love to see us going deep in key technology areas, activating our leadership program in a much more um, scalable way, and it goes back to saying supporting the talent in the industry today is the easiest way to create greater equity for both women and girls. So making sure that we're creating systemic shifts inside of tech companies and the industry to be designing for inclusion and seeing women retained and promoted within companies and the industry.
Well, I look forward to 5 years' time and seeing that kind of amazing success and growth. And I really appreciate your time sharing your insights as you as a leader and the growth of Women Who Code. I'll put links in the show notes below so people can reach out, and hopefully people will reach out and find out more about your organization and get some of those great successes for themselves that you were mentioning before. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.